And I noticed that you didn't say anything about my school at the beginning, because it wasn't Harrow, so I'll just share that it was Bishop Ullathorne Roman Catholic School in Coventry, for those of you who want to know. I'm very proud to be a comprehensive school girl, and I want the best education that money doesn't buy for everybody. It's also interesting that no Lib Dems were able to come this evening, although if I'd broken as many promises as Nick Clegg, I think I'd be opening my very own Swiss bank account with HSBC. Now, we do have budget votes this evening, and our Chief Whip is very vigorous about making sure that we're bang on time. So Eric and I will have to leave you both a little bit earlier. The Chief Whip, our Chief Whip is a lady called Rosie Winterton. I learnt a great deal from working in the Whip's office. I learnt that she actually does keep a whip in there. It's true. And she only uses it on you if you've been very, very good. Let that one percolate through. Can I thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you this evening. The UK and India share a unique history and now enjoy a relationship of equals. And at the heart of this relationship are the 1.5 million people of Indian origin living in the UK. The Gujarati community is very important to Britain and to the Labour Party. And the contribution of your community to the economic growth in both small businesses, industry and trade links are integral to Britain's future economic prosperity. And I have some very happy memories of travelling in India in 1992 and 1994, but I remember my visit to Ahmedabad and visiting the fantastic textile museum there. And I bought a small piece of cloth from that textile museum. I took it home with me, and it was, you know, from the East Indies, a very old design. And then about 15 years later, I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I saw the same piece of cloth, part of our shared heritage, there in the Victoria and Albert Museum, the same heritage, the same cloth being worn and woven by people in India and then exported over to people in the United Kingdom. Now, I'm happy to be here with you tonight and talk about some of the issues that you face, and I'll outline how Labour offers a clear choice at the next general election. The choice between a failing plan or a better plan for working families. I'd say that the Tories' plan is failing working families like yours because they prioritise helping a few people at the top. Our plan is rooted in a single truth, that Britain succeeds when working families succeed. Labour offers a better plan for living standards, the next generation and for our NHS. We have a better plan for a better future, and we have 5 very clear pledges that we think will make a difference. First, we want a strong economic foundation for our country. We will balance the books and cut the deficit every year while securing the future of the NHS. None of our manifesto commitments require additional borrowing, and we are the only party that has made this pledge. The Tories have not yet said how they will pay for £10 billion of unfunded tax cuts, and I believe that this could only be done by raising VAT again or by putting the NHS at risk. We understand that small and medium-sized businesses are critical for Britain's success, and we have a better plan for those businesses. We'll provide the support and certainty they need to grow and thrive, to create more secure and better paid jobs across the country. Under this government, small businesses have suffered rising costs, a skills shortage and lack of finance. And I know from my experience working with small and medium-sized businesses at Cranfield University just how damaging that can be. Last week, Ed Miliband set out our plans to help small businesses grow, make bigger profits and build a better future for Britain. Labour will cut business rates this year and freeze them next year, saving an average of £400 for 1.5 million businesses. We'll lower energy bills by giving businesses the same protections as households, and we'll introduce legal requirements for large firms to report their record on late payments, including the action they've taken to compensate suppliers. And Labour will give the Federation of Small Businesses the legal right to represent its members in the court or before the relevant authorities when contractual terms or practices are grossly unfair. And even in opposition, when this government was setting up the groceries code adjudicator, we argued very strongly that fines should be included for those large companies that exploited small companies on the face of the legislation. Sadly, that was resisted by this government, but it is something that we are committed to. We know from the scandals around Tesco and some of the other large supermarkets, these payments that are required from small businesses are deeply, deeply unfair. Second, we want higher living standards for working families. David Cameron says the economy's fixed, but the recovery hasn't reached most working families. Working people are £1,600 a year worse off under the Tories. And the unfair bedroom tax is hitting 400,000 disabled people. And it risks costing more than it saves and has forced people to use food banks. Energy bills are up £300 since the election. So we will freeze energy bills until 2017 and give the regulator the power to cut bills this winter. And we'll make sure that they pass on falls in wholesale energy prices to customers this winter. And as a working mum, just been home to see my daughter in her little school play, I know the cost of a nursery place has risen 30% under this government. Part-time childcare for a family with 2 children now costs often more than the average mortgage. And here in London it is particularly expensive. So we'll extend free childcare for working parents of 3 and 4-year-olds from 15 to 25 hours, funded by increasing the bank levy. And finally, we want to make sure the minimum wage rises to £80 an hour. Third, the NHS. It was raised at the beginning of the meeting. We know that more patients are waiting longer, and it's getting hard to get the care you need. So we'll create a £2.5 billion fund funded by a mansion tax on properties over £2 million, cracking down on tax avoidance and a levy on tobacco companies. That fund will provide 20,000 more nurses, 8,000 more GPs, 3,000 more midwives and 5,000 more home carers with the time to care, not just the 15 minutes that they are contractually obliged to do. And I know from my own constituency in Wakefield just how important it is for us to recruit more nurses and GPs. We will join up services from home to hospital, guarantee a GP appointment within 48 hours, and crucially, cancer tests in 1 week. We've also called on the government to stop fining people with diabetes for claiming free prescriptions that they're entitled to because they don't hold the right paperwork. People with diabetes are entitled to free prescriptions but must have a valid medical exemption certificate. But many people don't know they need this certificate and have claimed prescriptions for years without any problems. And the government's introduced a prescription checking service, which is meant to crack down on fraud. But this sudden change has seen large numbers of people with diabetes being fined up to £100 on top of the cost of their prescription. So, fourth, controls on immigration. We've heard David Cameron's pledge is now broken, with no action taken to stop local workers' conditions and wages being undercut. He promised to get net migration down to the tens of thousands, but in fact it's rising, not falling. And at 298,000, it's higher than in May 2010, and his target is in tatters. The Tories are failing to deal with illegal immigration. There are fewer people being stopped at the border, more people absconding on visas, and fewer foreign criminals being deported. And sadly, there have only been 2 prosecutions for non-payment of the minimum wage since 2010. So Labour has a better plan. We will control immigration, but with fair rules. People who come here from the EU won't be able to claim benefits for at least 2 years. And we'll introduce fair rules making it illegal for employers to undercut wages by exploiting workers. We will have stronger border controls with US-style visa reforms to fund 1,000 more border staff to take stronger enforcement action against illegal immigration. And we've repeatedly criticised the government over its failure to clamp down on bogus colleges, which again was mentioned at the beginning. This left many students who wish to take advantage of student visas being defrauded of huge sums of money and facing immediate deportation. And at the same time, the government prevented thousands of foreign students of legitimate colleges and universities from coming to Britain to study. This is because they decided to treat all types of immigration the same and include students within the government's failed net migration cap. That decision, I think, has damaged our economy as well as our historic links to nations like India. Finally, we want Britain to be a country where our children do better than their parents. And as the daughter of Irish immigrants, that's certainly something that my parents wanted for me. So only a Labour government will protect the whole education budget instead of going ahead with the Tories' plans for education cuts. We will cap class sizes at 30 for 5-, 6- and 7-year-olds to help successful teaching and class discipline. And we'll introduce gold standard vocational education with a new gold standard technical baccalaureate for 16 to 19-year-olds, guaranteeing an apprenticeship for every school leaver who gets the basic grades. We want businesses to have more control over the funding and design of apprenticeships in exchange for increases in the quantity and quality of training. And we'll cut tuition fees from £9,000 to £6,000 a year, reducing the burden of debt on the next generation. And that will be funded by restricting pension tax relief for those on the highest incomes. Finally, I want to talk about Labour's approach to international development, which is my area. I believe we have a better plan to tackle global poverty and inequality across the world. My values don't stop at the White Cliffs of Dover, and I'm sure yours don't either. We want to increase and maintain DFID's focus on fragile and conflict-affected states and ensure that we tackle inequality, particularly after Ebola, making sure that the poorest have free access to healthcare, that everyone can enjoy full human rights, and that together we can tackle the problems caused by climate change. We want to work with the private sector to create good jobs, help them make the right choices to treat workers with respect, maintain sustainable supply chains, and, crucially, pay their taxes where they operate. The last Labour government gave more than £1 billion in aid to India. We helped bring more than 20 million more children into school and established 250,000 new schools. We will continue to support India's transformation and continue to strengthen the trade and business relationship between our two countries. We offer a better plan for living standards, the next generation, for the NHS, and for tackling poverty in our world. We want a world where no skin colour is put above another skin colour, no religion is put above another religion, no social class is put above another social class. We have a better plan for a better future, and if you share our values to help working families get on, please vote Labour on May the 7th.